Good evening, everyone. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Oh, that wasn't nearly enthusiastic enough. How are you doing tonight? Well, thanks for navigating the weather out there. It was seeing that snow coming down. I was beginning to wonder how many people were going to just hibernate and stay home. But it's really appreciate you coming out. I know there's lots of different options out there in terms of events that go on during the holidays. So we really do appreciate you all being here tonight. And we've got, this is actually our 15th year now in existence, and so it's a kind of a milestone for us. And we typically do this concert in a couple of sets. So the first set that we do is all big band music. It's more contemporary, all the way to classic. We've got a wide variety of styles for you there. And then we'll take a brief intermission and come back with all holiday Christmas music and a lot of new tunes there. So you're in the Christmas spirit? Yeah. Good. So this is going to hopefully send you off in even more of a Christmas spirit. And keep in mind, this is the spirit of giving. The more you give, the more you receive, right? So don't be afraid to give it up for these guys when you hear something go on there. And in return, we're going to give it back to you. So that's going to send you out here with an elevated holiday experience. So we're going to start out. Are you all ready for a funk tune? Yeah. Cool. This is a tune that came out of the Buddy Rich Big Band, and there's actually several recordings of it out there, but my favorite was actually off of a live album. It's called Live at Ronnie Scott's, and they opened up their concert with that, so we'd like to do this in the same spirit as that. You'll hear from Omar Farias on tenor saxophone, and our drummer who's going to play the Buddy Rich role, Mr. Matt Larson. This is Don Mims' Beulah Wood. Basin drums. Okay, so we're going to smooth it out a little bit for you and do the next tune, which I don't think we've ever really done a concert without doing at least one of this guy's charts. I've always been a big fan of Tom Kubis, and he's got quite a background and career as a great writer, but also as a band leader and as a player. He's a saxophone player and typically leads a big band out of LA, but he really goes clear back to the 1960s, writing for film and for television. I see at least a few gray hairs out there, enough to remember the Jackie Gleason show in the 1960s. Yeah. And then moving into the 70s, maybe some of you happened to see like Bob Newhart, so there was a number of things there. So Tom was well known for that, but actually in the big band world, he's really well known for his mediums, straight ahead swingers, and that's what we're going to do for you next year. So you're going to hear from John Nelson on the trumpet, as well as Jeff Sizer on the trombone. This is Peg, Oh My Heart. Next piece we'd like to do for you is an historical piece. So now we're going to shift styles here a little bit more, come out of the swing era and into an area that actually kind of alienated jazz for a while because people were dancing to this music, rock and roll was coming out, and so now all of a sudden swing was no longer the popular thing, and so musicians kind of retreated and into a very musician's music kind of thing. Two players out of the Cab Calloway band, younger players at the time, a guy by the name of John Burks Gillespie, as well as Charlie Parker, got together and really formulated what was to become the groundwork for bebop. And so the next tune you're going to hear is actually one of the two tunes that we're showcasing each musician. One was the tune that featured Charlie Parker was called Coco, and this next tune that we're going to do, which was more of a feature for Dizzy Gillespie, is a piece that we're going to feature the entire trumpet section on, and they're all going to take rides on this. And it's going to go right down the horn from right to left, your right to left. So you're going to hear from John first, and then it's going to go to Brent Steiner on trumpet, and then moving to John Ladinas, and finally Troy Lydeen. So this is called Shaw Nuff. shed a few pounds. The next tune we'd like to do for you is actually kind of, when you think about the formula for creating pieces, you can go back to another famous big band leader, but he was more of he did a lot of popular music during World War II. This is when big band music was for dancing and you know, it's clearly the swing era. How many have heard the name Glenn Miller before? So one of Glenn Miller's formulas he would always talk about was something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. This is actually our something new. So this tune actually was written 2 years ago, and it was a great piece of music, and it's a very progressive piece. The drummer by the name of Eric Harland is a very contemporary player, and he is the original composer of this piece. He's been known to make appearances with the Dave Holland Band. We did a lot of work with him. Chris Potter, another great tenor saxophone player out of the New York area. And that was all put together. This piece was rearranged by another gentleman whose name is Bob Patterson. And he's got a jazz orchestra that recorded this tune on an album called Vital Frequencies. So this is one of those tunes that we do as a band because we really like the challenge. So bear with us on this. It's a very contemporary piece. It's a great piece of music called Treachery. You'll hear from Colin Wilson, who's our Dr. Colin Wilson, who is the director now, second year as with the CBC Jazz Ensemble, and here's a full-time faculty member. And then you'll also hear from a CBC alum back here in the trombone section, Esteban Zarate. This is Treachery. but that one was a little intense, so we'll mellow it out a bit. Next tune that we'd like to do for you actually is another person that oftentimes either his music or his publishing company makes it to our stage in nearly every performance. Pretty hard to avoid. And he's actually, I would say he's local because he's over in Liberty Lake, Washington. He started out down in Newport with the Stan Kenton Orchestra a number of years ago, playing second trombone and writing a lot for that group, which allowed him to become very well known as a writer, and he continued to expand those skills. Started a music publishing company, and that was actually it's one of the things he'll definitely go down in history for, is making so much of the libraries available. Again, Stan Kenton's Creative World publishing company was tied up in litigation for a number of years, and so Bob was able to go in and get that and make it accessible and rescore a lot of it and get that going with his publishing company, as well as many other composers. So the person I'm talking about is Bob Curnow, and he's had his own big band, similar to a group like this. It's in Spokane, did a lot of gigging, but his health is not letting him do that now, but he's still out there writing, still running the publishing company, just a wonderful man. So we're going to do a great ballad. One of the things that he did as an arranger was take Pat Metheny and Lionel May's tunes and rescore those for big band, and this is one of those arrangements. Beautiful ballad, again featuring Colin Wilson here. Again, I mentioned, but there was some applause going on. He's on his second year here now at Columbia Basin College full-time as the director of bands, so make sure you come hear the CBC band. They're awesome. And this is Across the Sky. two styles that divided. So we talked about Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and then we kind of saw this separation from East Coast to West Coast. So on the East Coast we had what was known as hard bop, and which was kind of taking bop but just getting more earthy and funky, and then over on the West Coast they decided to be more sedate and more relaxed and cerebral, and actually bringing classical influences into that. These were mainly West Coast musicians out of the studios, and so kind of we have all three styles going on, and a really great trumpet player named Shorty Roberts did this piece, and Bob Kurnow again arranged this. It's called Just a Few, and it's kind of done in the cool venue, but it's also got a lot of, you'll hear bop influence. So you hear from Mike Bryant here on lead alto saxophone, Troy Lydeen on trumpet, and Bill McKay on piano. This is Just a Few. it's a full collective. If you are aware of the music department, people here at Columbia Basin College, this is a full collaborative effort. Of course, I'm retired from that whole thing, so, but I did get emeritized, so I'm still part of the game here. Running sound back here, we've got Dave Cazier, who's the director of the choral activities. Of course, our Dean of Arts and Humanities right here on piano, Bill McKay. And Colin Wilson, of course, now taking care of the world of bands. I guess what I need to do too with the cello feature so we can bring Bruce out. And that's the only one missing out of the gang. So anyway, I'd like to close out this set. We'll do a brief little intermission after this, but this is a tune that is, again, another great arranger, well known for his swing stuff, largely because during the period of time when he was made most famous was working with the Count Basie Orchestra, 1967, and of course Basie passed away in 1984, but he continued to write, and prior to that he actually started all the way back in 1944 as a writer, ended up being in charge of the Airmen of Note and was their arranger. He got recruited by the White House and ended up serving as a staff arranger for both the Kennedy and Johnson administration. He's still alive. He's 94 years old and still going strong. This is Sammy Nestico's Pressure Cooker. 10-minute intermission, and we'll be back with all of your holiday tunes.